If you're building agent workflows, the agent should always run on a remote server, not on your laptop. That part should already be the default. So once you move the agent off your local machine, the next problem shows up fast. Where does its memory live? For a long time, keeping an Obsidian Vault alive on a VPS meant some kind of workaround. I ran headless Obsidian in a Docker container for a while, and it worked, but it still felt like duct tape. Then Obsidian shipped an official headless client, and the whole setup got a whole lot cleaner. In the next 8 minutes, I'll show you how to keep a live Obsidian Vault on a remote server so it survives reboots and logouts and your agent memory stays up all the time. This is a separate Node.js CLI tool on NPM, not the full Obsidian CLI you get when the desktop app is installed. You install it with npm install-g obsidian-headless, and the binary is just called OB. It requires Node.js 22 or newer, and you still need an active Obsidian Sync subscription. But once you've got those, you get a lightweight sync client that doesn't need Electron, doesn't need a fake monitor, and doesn't need a GUI at all. For an agent, that's enough, because the agent doesn't need the full app. It just needs the markdown files in the vault. It uses the same end-to-end encryption as the desktop app, so your notes stay private even on a shared server. People try all sorts of manual sync workarounds, and some of them work for a while, but Obsidian Sync is the one that just keeps working. So let's get it installed on a server, because the real payoff comes once it's running as a background service that survives logouts and reboots without you having to babysit it. I'm running this on a Hostinger VPS because they make spinning up a cheap Linux box pretty painless. And full disclosure, this is a sponsored video, and thanks very much to Hostinger for sponsoring this video. Now, I think you would already have your server, but if not, go to hostinger.com and choose one of the VPS plans. I think KVM2 is the best option as it's a little bit more powerful and still really cheap over a few years. Choose a server location that's close to you, and then choose your operating system. You can choose all sorts of different operating systems, some with certain software pre-installed, but I always go for just the stock Ubuntu option. Then before you commit, click the coupon code box and type in the word MATTW to get 10% off. From there, it takes a few minutes to spin up the server. I have a few videos on here on how to secure that server, including this one, so check that out when you're done watching this one. And we can now move on. First, make sure you've got Node.js 22 or newer by running node ---- version. Then install the headless client with npm install-g obsidian-headless. So you've got the OB command everywhere on your system. Next, run OB login and type in your Obsidian account email and password. And if you got two-factor auth enabled, it'll prompt you for the code automatically, which is a nice touch. Once you've logged in, run OB sync list remote to see every vault tied to your account, including any shared ones. Then pick the one you want and create a local directory on the server before you CD into it. Then run obsync setup --vault and then whatever your vault name is to link that folder to your remote copy, and run obsync once to pull everything down and verify it works. If you want live syncing, you can add the ---- continuous flag. Sort of. Your files are now syncing, but here's a gotcha that tripped me up the first time. obsync status only works when you run it from inside the vault directory, and if you run it somewhere else, it'll complain that it can't find the config, which confused me the first time too. Also pay attention to the sync mode. The default is bidirectional, which is what most people want, so changes flow both ways between your server and your other devices. But mirror remote can overwrite local files if you point it the wrong way, so be careful with that one. Here's the part most tutorials skip. If you just run obsync continuous, the sync stops when you close the terminal, so you wrap it in a user-level systemd service instead. Create a file at .config/systemd/user/obsidian-sync.service and point exec start to the OB binary with sync --continuous. Set working directory to your Vault folder, including the path as the environment, and add restart on failure so it comes back if something goes wrong. Once the file is saved, reload the daemon with systemctl-user daemon reload, then enable and start the service in one shot with systemctl-user enable --now obsidian-sync. You can check that it's running with systemctl-user status obsidian-sync. And the logs live at journalctl-user-u obsidian-sync-f, which is handy if something breaks. Now here's the single most important step that almost everyone misses. Run sudo loginctl enable-linger, and then in quotes, $user one time, because that tells systemd to keep your user services alive after you log out of SSH, and even after the server reboots. Without this line, your service dies the moment your terminal closes. But with it, the Vault stays synced 24/7, whether you're logged in or not. I use a user-level service instead of a system-wide one because it keeps credentials under my normal user, and there are no root-owned config files, no permission mess, and no sudo around the sync process itself. That's cleaner and safer. The sync is running, but that's not the real win. The real win is what your agent can do now with that Vault. Obsidian is just a folder of Markdown files plus a .obsidian config folder, and there's no proprietary database or locked format. So your agent doesn't need the full Obsidian app at all. Any script, CLI tool, or agent can read those notes and write new ones using standard file operations, so you don't need a special Obsidian API. Bash, cat, echo, and any scripting language work fine. Now, I happen to use Hermes for my agent workflows, but Claude Code, Codex, and OpenClaw can hit the same Vault. This works so well because everything is just plain text. Your agent can dump a daily research summary into a note, append tasks to a list, collect code snippets from multiple sources, or drop meeting transcripts after a call. So the Vault becomes both a source and a destination. Your agent reads your existing notes for context, then writes results back where you already look. One interesting community project called Open Second Brain even runs nightly dream passes that turn agent corrections into persistent preferences inside your Vault, which is just one example of what's possible. This setup covers everything you'd want a Markdown store for, not just YouTube summaries or blog drafts. And that's all there is to it. You now have an Obsidian Vault running remotely that survives reboots and logouts, and any agent that can read a text file can now use it as a brain. If you're building agent workflows, this changes what's possible. I think it's pretty cool, and I look forward to seeing what you build with it. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.